So guardianship is something we get a call about in the context of closing out a dependency case, a juvenile dependency case, in the context of a guardianship as a permanency option versus adoption. And I often hear from prospective adoptive parents that they're against guardianship. Absolutely not, I won't do a guardianship. And we often have to explore why that is. And sometimes it's correct, it doesn't make sense for you or your family, but sometimes there's things about guardianship that is maybe just unknown to people. So guardianship essentially keeps the parental rights of the parents intact, but guardianships can be set up in a way that the parents have to have visitation or are allowed visitation, have to pay child support. There's different kind of parameters around it. And at some point, if the parents abandon the child within the meaning of Chapter 63, Florida Statute Chapter 63, then the guardianship can be kind of converted or turned into an adoption petition. That would be, not converted, that's the wrong word, but an adoption petition can be put forward and you prove to the court that the child has abandoned. The other thing with guardianship is it's a way to kind of close out a case that if there aren't grounds for termination of parental rights potentially, but everyone kind of agrees that guardianship's in the best interest of the child, whether the parents agree or it's the court that's agreeing or the department is agreeing. So those are all options. It later on kind of shifts the burden to the parents to show why the guardianship wouldn't be in the child's best interest any longer, and that's a pretty high burden to meet. So there's not necessarily, I think some of the fears that a guardianship can just be overturned like that is a little bit unfounded. Also, the laws have recently changed to allow for the different monthly stipends and such to be for relatives to be higher and close out in guardianship. So the child might still get some of those monies if it's closed out in guardianship and some of those benefits, which is important. There's also ways, and this is super important to know, there are also ways that once or if you petition to adopt that child later, pursuant to Chapter 63 for abandonment purposes, the child may still be eligible for some of those benefits. And now that has to be done a certain way. So you can't just file it in family court with any attorney and expect that you're going to get those subsidies and benefits. It doesn't work that way. So it's important to go to somebody who really understands the subsidy part of it, because depending on the age that you adopt that child, you could be leaving thousands of dollars on the table, because the benefit at the moment is somewhere around $515, $530 a month for each child. And again, depending on that age, that could be a lot of money. The only thing that you're not going to receive in that context very likely is the college tuition stuff, which, you know, is important and important to some people, but if adoption is not an option at all and guardianship is, it's important to talk about why that might be a feasible and good option for your family. It doesn't necessarily limit that where your geographic location. So I get a lot of calls like that saying, I want to move, but I have permanent guardianship of this child and I don't know that I can move. That's not really an issue. It allows you, in a sense, to be the parent of the child for all intents and purposes without actually terminating the parental rights of the biological parents. And so sometimes that also makes sense for people in a family context if it's a family member's child that you are caring for. So we are happy to discuss those options. If you hear kind of rumblings in your case about, oh, maybe we should just close this out as a guardianship, and your initial reaction is absolutely not, it's a good, it's good to get the advice of an attorney who understands the guardianship, can explain that process to you, go through what your fears are, and find out if they are founded or unfounded, and talk through some of those pros and cons.